Imagine never having to work again, just enjoying your chai by the beach. Sounds like the dream, right? But before you cancel your 9 to 5, let's talk about whether financial independence and retiring early, aka FIRE, is actually too good to be true. And if so, what are your options? For those of you new to the channel, I'm Ibrahim, and since 2016 I've helped millions of Muslims with their personal finances and investing. I run an investment firm called Curate Capital. I've been lucky enough to write a best-selling book and hold qualifications in Islamic law, investment management and corporate law. Let's start by breaking down what FIRE actually is. It stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, and it encourages people to save and invest up to 70% of their income so they can retire or reach financial freedom as early as their 30s or 40s. That's kind of, I should be retiring in the FIRE world. To work out this magical number needed to retire, you take your annual expenses and multiply them by 25. For example, if you anticipate needing £50,000 a year in your retirement, your FIRE number is 1.25 million. And this is built on the assumption that you can safely withdraw 4% of your savings annually without depleting the rest of your nest egg too quickly. This is the 4% rule. Now, the FIRE crossover point occurs when your investment income exceeds your living expenses, meaning that you don't need to rely on a traditional job to cover your costs. And this is the whole point of financial independence, or FIRE. There are actually different types of FIRE, and you can find the one that works for you and your personal goals. First up, you've got lean FIRE. This is a type of FIRE for people who want a minimalist lifestyle with modest living expenses. Typically, you're on a lower budget with just enough for basic needs such as housing, food, and transport. Here, you're kind of needing to save up to about £500,000. Next, you've got fat FIRE, where you're living a little bit more comfortably with more luxuries, and this is for people who want to retire early but maintain a more comfortable and luxurious lifestyle, including higher expenses for nicer housing and travel, etc. And that is more like 1.5 million that you need to save up. Then you've got barista FIRE. This is where you do part-time work for extra income, and this involves partially retiring and taking on a part-time job or ad hoc work to supplement your core passive income. The goal here is to have a passive income that covers most expenses, but then working a little bit to cover the gaps that you might have. And here you're looking at about £375,000 that you would need to save up. Now, the appeal of FIRE is very obvious. Early financial freedom to live life on your own terms. Finally, you're able to leave the corporate rat race behind and regain control of your time. Sounds like an absolute dream. Being able to be with your family, giving more to the community, focusing and strengthening on your deen, hiring expensive cars and making loud noises down Winslow Road. What? No, scrap that one. What more could anyone want? But there's a real dark side to the FIRE movement as well. And that's what no one is talking about. And perhaps FIRE might well be too good to be true. Look, there's a bunch of problems with FIRE. The first and obvious elephant in the room is that you've got this unrealistic 50 to 70% savings rate, where if you look at the statistics, only 8.2% of the average Briton's wealth is saved up. So if you're expecting to save 50 to 70%, that's actually pretty unrealistic unless you're living with your in-laws or you're somehow living rent-free. And for most people, that's just not an option, especially if you're living in places like London or New York or in a city that's quite expensive. There's no FIRE for you. But actually, to my mind, there's also the loneliness aspect here, where if you're this hero on your FIRE journey and you've planted the flag and you're retired at the age of 40, you're in Dubai, you're on your sun chair, you're on your deck chair next to the beach, you've got your pina colada and you're ready to sip, and then you think, hang on a second, why is this beach completely empty? Well, it's empty because no one else is a maniac like you and has done FIRE. And so you are enjoying your pina colada on the beach, but you're on your own. And so that's why many people who actually do FIRE find themselves washed up and lonely. And that is not really my idea of fun. Then there's this obsession with hitting a number. I'll be happy once I reach X number. But you and I both know that human beings are not built like that. There's a famous hadith about how, if a man was given a mountain's worth of gold, he would want another mountain's worth of gold. We're just not happy until we die. We always want more. We think that when we get to a point, we're going to be happy, but we're never really happy. And actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us that we need to flip that script. We need to be happy with whatever we have. We need to be content and thankful for whatever we've been given today. And fire just mentally sets you up in a place, if you're not careful, that goes completely against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us for. And to be honest, the biggest thing that I really get frustrated about with fire is, why are we fetishizing? Why are we putting on a pedestal retirement? That's not the goal of life. The goal of life isn't to just kind of dream aspirationally about the end of working hard. That is not the human struggle. That is not what, if you look at your heroes who did incredible things, they are not famous for lying on a deck chair drinking pina colada. They are famous for battling, for struggling, for working really hard and achieving incredible perfection in particular sports or arts or technical skills. These are people who never rested. These are people who achieved incredible things. They are our heroes. And yet, why then is someone on this fire movement flex aiming for retirement? Like, why are we aiming for retirement? Like, that's the opposite of what it means to be a fulfilled human being. And in fact, I think it goes back to a deeper point, which is that people are unhappy about working, not because it's about working, but it's because of what they are working on and what they are doing. Because if you are doing something that is deeply unfulfilling and you're working really hard for that, really the only benefit you're getting from it is the money. And so then you fetishize the money and you hope for a dream in the future when you've got enough money so you don't need to do that work anymore. But that's not what Islam teaches. That's like saying, oh, I'm going to solve the problem of all of this unhealthy food by eating so much food that I will never need to eat again, or eating so much food that I just die. That's obviously an illogical way of trying to solve the problem. The real way to solve the problem that you are trying to do with fire, or many people are trying to do with fire, is by actually trying to find a job that is deeply fulfilling. And if you do that, then the point that you're trying to get to, which is freedom, happiness, relaxation, actually can be something that you enjoy whilst going to work. That becomes your freedom, your happiness, and your joy, your contentment. As Muslims, we can actually rethink fire in a way that's sustainable and aligned with our faith. What we could do is actually reframe retirement as financial freedom. It's not about quitting work ASAP. It's about having saved up enough and invested enough to cover living expenses and pursue work that's aligned with your goals and your Islam. Maybe that's walking away from an intense city job because the extra income that you've now built allows for a more relaxed role with additional time for ibadah and community service. Or maybe it's taking a 6-month travel break because you aren't reliant on your salary income to pay the rent. This also relieves pressure from having to reach your fire number so soon, because the nest egg can and always does continue to grow with your regular income. Finding fulfillment along the way, striving for financial independence, should happen in balance. Everything happens in balance in Islam. We are the nation of the middle path. Financial goals should not overshadow daily joys or stop you missing out on times with loved ones. Be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you have today, rather than delaying gratitude for the day that you achieve financial independence. And I think as part of this, we have to reflect on where we're spending our money as well, because that can really critical in bringing you happiness and long-term fulfillment. This is usually done by spending on experiences rather than material objects. So doing an umrah rather than buying that new BMW, or traveling and seeing the world instead of buying that latest Chanel bag. That's the way that you can still meet your goals, but also at the same time, you're being savvy as well. You also need to embrace balance over extremes. Remember that Islam teaches us wasat, moderation. Avoid an all or nothing approach to generating long-term wealth and consider how you can enjoy the present, plan for the future, and still fulfill your obligations for zakat and sadaqah. So instead of aiming for that 70% savings rate, could you do 20 or 30% instead? Or instead of just trying to cut down your expenditure, could you start a side hustle to increase your savings rate as well and actually have a lot more fun whilst doing it? And if you're asking for my humble opinion, find a job that you are so good at that it doesn't feel like work. Find a job that is so deeply meaningful for your akhirah as well, that when you work at it, you are happy to work at it until you actually reach your death. There is no concept of retirement in Islam. Wealth is fundamentally about freedom to do things. But if you control your desires and you don't necessarily desire those things, you are already wealthy. You are already free. So folks, what we need to do is take the good of FIRE by focusing on what we actually want to do and achieve, and by when. That planning aspect, that's brilliant. Also the savings and investing consistently, that's excellent. The key with FIRE is that it allows you to take charge over your finances rather than sleepwalking through them. But let's not also kid ourselves. FIRE isn't perfect. Life isn't just about retirement. It isn't about killing yourself in the process of saving and investing only to then retire and realize that this isn't what it was cracked up to be. And as Muslims, FIRE, when it's just about money, is actually purposeless. This isn't why we come to this world. We don't come to this world to work really hard so that we've saved up a bunch of assets and resources to then really enjoy life in retirement. Is that what the Quran and the Sunnah teaches? Of course not. There's benefits to FIRE, but we should not embrace it wholeheartedly. I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this FIRE movement? And do you think it's actually worth the sacrifice? Do you think it's realistic? And what bits of the FIRE movement do you think we should take as Muslims and adopt ourselves? Do you agree with what I've said? I'd love to hear from you. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum.